Hurricane Matthew may be a monster storm, but now it has a monster face to go with it. A creepy-looking satellite image of Hurricane Matthew with a face reminiscent of a human skull has sparked a lot of attention online this week. Scientist Paul Meyer of NASA's Earth Science Office stated that the skull's teeth are in fact cold convective clouds.
The Atlantic's most powerful storm in a decade is now bearing down on the U.S. Days after hammering Haiti and Cuba, Hurricane Matthew has 4 U.S. states on high alert. George Thomas has the latest on the storm's potential path.
This was the scene in Haiti's southwestern tip, where Matthew first made landfall Tuesday, leaving rivers bloated and many people who live in shacks made of wood or concrete blocks without homes.
The entire place is destroyed. Nothing was spared. Nothing. All the trees were destroyed, ripped off. We don't have anything to help us survive.
Thousands of people have been displaced as the Category 4 hurricane pounded the nation. With roads blocked and communications down in parts of the country, details are still coming in, but several deaths are already known as rescue workers struggle to reach some of the worst hit areas. Operation Blessing, which has been in Haiti since the 2010 devastating earthquake, has teams prepared to rebuild homes and provide clean drinking water to affected residents.
Even before the storm, we started preparing by purchasing building materials to help fix those homes immediately. We've had our chlorine manufacturing machine operating 24/7 since about three or 4 days ago to stock up on chlorine.
Meanwhile, residents in Hollywood, Florida,
we're buying a bunch of canned food, a bunch of water,
are getting ready.
Your batteries and your lanterns and your flashlight.
As hurricane and tropical storm warnings are posted along the east coast of the Sunshine State.
Whatever happens, even if the eye doesn't go over, I think we're going to get a lot of swell, a lot of wind, and I think it's best just to stay safe.
In North Carolina, Joe Gillis, a fifth-generation cotton farmer, is praying for a miracle. He fears Matthew's strong winds and rain could potentially devastate a season's worth of crop.
You know, the good Lord's going to do what he's going to do to us, and we're just going to have to keep the faith and hope that by some stretch of the imagination we'll make it through and still be able to salvage some of the crop.
In South Carolina, the governor there has ordered more than 1 million people to evacuate the state's coastline today ahead of Hurricane Matthew.
We also anticipate averaging about 100-mile-an-hour winds. So this is something that we want to take very seriously.
Haley joined governors of 3 other states, Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina, in declaring states of emergency as forecasters expect Matthew to hit the southeast U.S. coast later this week.
If you're able to leave early and go today, do that. Don't take a chance.
Forecasters say it will likely take another day or so to get a better picture of the path and potential impact that Hurricane Matthew could have on the U.S.
Officials here in Florida are stressing that today is the day to prepare for Matthew. The situation here will go drastically downhill tomorrow. As you can see behind me, some tourists here along Daytona Beach are trying to soak up as much sun as they can as the storm churns its way. Many of them actually tell me weather-wise, today is actually the best day of the week so far for them. But residents here do appear to be taking this storm very seriously. When we arrived here, we went to some stores. Stores were selling out of water and food items. At gas stations, people have been lining up since yesterday, filling up their tanks, also taking some home for generators and things of that nature. So it does appear that people are taking this storm seriously. Now, when it comes to the tourists, we actually spoke to one woman. She's from Canada. Her family was supposed to be here until next Tuesday. They're actually heading home tomorrow ahead of the storm. So we're certainly hearing a lot of that as well today, Jamie.
You know, I have to ask you, these storms can take many different turns. You now have Florida in that cone of uncertainty. What areas right now do we know of that are expected to get hit the hardest in coming days?
Yeah, that's really the uncertainty at this hour, Jamie. The National Hurricane Center says that when hurricanes like Matthew really skirt so close to the coast, it's really hard to talk about direct impacts on communities around here this far in advance. But certainly people here are bracing for the possibility that Matthew could strengthen even more as it churns and heads this way. Folks here are bracing for hurricane force and tropical force force winds. Also up to 10 inches of rain could fall because of the storm. Also very destructive and dangerous storm surge in the area of more than 6 feet where we're hearing here in the Daytona Beach area. So a lot to certainly worry about with this storm. And again, the National Hurricane Center says that even a slight jog to the west by the storm as it skirts up the coast could mean very destructive and dangerous consequences for people here. Again, it's the reason why officials are telling folks that today is the day to prepare for this storm.
You know, by the time you get to October, you're really feeling like, okay, maybe we're in the clear. I know hurricane season goes to November 30th, but this is a big storm, and as you were just explaining, could have significant impacts. I know President Obama met with FEMA teams earlier today. What can you tell us about that meeting?
Yeah, and I think actually, Jamie, this is the first storm to hit this part of Florida since Wilma several years ago. We do know President Obama did cancel a planned trip to Florida today because of the storm. Instead, he headed over to FEMA in Washington, D.C. to get an update on the federal response. We do know that FEMA has already pre-positioned supplies in states like Georgia to prepare for the disaster response in the coming days. They've also activated several emergency centers that will help them respond. In terms of the state of Florida, the governor here says that about 6,000 National Guardsmen and women are already on standby, ready to deploy in response to Matthew. But even in saying that, the governor said that they will not put the lives of first responders in danger tomorrow and Friday as Matthew moves in this area. So that's one of the reasons why he was very adamant in telling folks that they need to evacuate, especially along these barrier islands and folks who live along some of the coastal areas. He will not put those first responder lives in danger.